Hello everybody, this is going to be a new video. It's not to do with braking, which is something that mostly I cover, because I always say that braking is where 99% of time is from. But in the GTP, there is also another way to find time, and it's where a lot of people, I think, overlook this and struggle with it. So let's show an example of what I'm talking about. So initially when we get back on throttle, usually we get to a certain percentage, so let's say 50%, and then we start increasing the pressure gradually after that. For example, here, so we're quick to about 80%, and we hold that for a little bit, and then we gradually push up the pressure. This is known as cadence throttling, or cadence throttling, and basically what it is when we exit these corners, we're usually at a low speed, right? So what happens is we need to get to a throttle where the limit of the longitudinal grip of the rear tyres are at with the given downforce that we have. And because we're travelling at a slower speed, we have less downforce, and we're also accelerating quicker because there's less air resistance pushing against the car. But these GTPs are very rear limited, which means that you can't get to 100% straight away. If I was to just stamp to 100% throttle right now, I would have just spun. So this is what cadence throttling is. It's finding the limit of when we're at the slow speed, and then when the downforce starts to build up, or we start straightening out the wheels. So we give more longitudinal grip back because we're using less of the. If we think about traction circle, we're using less of the available grip of the tire. So now we can start applying the throttle to maintain that 100% of the traction circle. But a lot of people do a mistake of where the cadence pressure is too high in the GTP, and the effect of it is not immediate. It's not like the car will almost snap out on you very aggressively. It's more subtle than that. So here was actually a mistake. This is my time attack lap back when we were doing pre-Q for IMSA Esports, and it was something that was costing me a lot of time in Sunset Bend, and my .4 lap is when I fixed this mistake. So yeah, when I get back to 80%, notice these lights here, and these are TC lights, and what happens is the surface temperatures heat up a lot. So if we look at the dashboard for a second here, pay attention to the rear temperatures here on the dash. So this is when we get back on throttle. Look how much they're climbing because we're on throttle. And basically what happens is if we have a too high cadence pressure, the initial pressure is too high, we overheat the tyre, which means we'll be stuck at this pressure for a longer period of time. And to illustrate this, I went into Paint and drawn really shit graphs, but they will demonstrate the point. So we have graph 2 over here, graph 1. Graph 2, what happens in graph 2? We get to a higher peak pressure, and this is the cadence point, so that our throttle maintenance point. But look what happens. We have to keep at this cadence throttle for a longer period of time, compared to the first diagram, which is a very short period of time. Which one do you think is faster? It's actually this one, because most of you'll notice that at 90% throttle, it's still like the car is not really accelerating that much. But when you're at 100% throttle, it's like, okay, now we have full power and it's accelerating a lot. So to be at 100% throttle faster than this is actually, you gain more time doing this, because you are at a higher percentage of throttle for a longer period of time compared to this, even though it doesn't exactly look like it, because this area is so short and the pressure of this cadence throttle is also so low. But it's faster because we get out of this cadence throttle way quicker than this. So this is a massive mistake, and another reason why this is so important to know is because the GTP tyres are super sensitive to temperature. We went over this in another video, but to give you an idea of how sensitive these tyres are, I want you to just drive a few laps, warm up the tyres, right? And then I just wanted to just do full opposite lock and went on a straight for like just a split second, and then go into the next corner. I guarantee you'll get huge understeer. This is because the tyre temperatures, they just don't cool down that fast in these cars. They're extremely sensitive to any sort of slip, slide, scrub, anything. So the surface temperatures stay hot, but the core temperature doesn't really change. So you just get these massive understeer, or in this case it'll be massive oversteer. So what happens is, let's say our cadence throttle was too high. Let's say this is a good example of where it could be too high. So here's the cadence throttle point. If this was too high, what would happen now is that you'd get just loads of oversteer here, so you'd have to lift off earlier and more in these corners. So you might initially be faster in this part right here, in this corner right here, but you'll actually lose more time overall because you won't be able to be on throttle as much in the second section here. So we still get little jabs of oversteer, but I guarantee if I was to have a higher cadence throttling point, so if I went to 80% pressure and maintain that, then what would happen is, in those left-handers where they're not completely flat out, I'd have to lift way more and I'd lose way more time. So it's really important to make sure that when we get back on throttle, we're not trying to get to the highest percentage necessarily at the cadence throttling point. We want to be slightly below, especially if there is corners in fast succession afterwards, because it means our rear temperatures will just be stupidly hot, the set will be undrivable, and it also gives you a false impression of where the limit is at. Because if you, let's say one lap you do this, you do too high of a pressure at the cadence point, next lap you do it properly, and then for some reason, okay, well now the tyres feel better, and it's like a constant loop of, why do these tyres feel so inconsistent? But you need to put the pieces together of what's the cause of this, and a lot of people just overlook this. It's very simple, but it's also very hard to detect almost, because as we know, the iRacing doesn't really output tyre temps live, like some of the titles like Le Mans Ultimate and Assetto Corsa. So it's all by feel. I mean, we can look at the surface temperature stuff, but it's not that helpful realistically. Also, we can use different sort of telemetry analysis tools like PyToolbox and Motec, but yeah, a lot of drivers don't use them. A lot of drivers use Garage 61, which don't have these features, so no one understands why this happens. So yeah, that's the cadence throttling point. Hopefully it explains it. But yeah, that's like the main technique on throttle for these GTPs. I mean, you know, we can go over a very beginner mistake if any beginners are watching. A lot of people, when they go around these corners where you need to stay on the brake, they just like do this Ayrton throttles technique, Ayrton Senna throttle technique. Maybe it worked for Senna, but it does not work in iRacing. I can guarantee you that. It doesn't work, because you're going to be dancing now over and under the limit instead of being consistently on the limit, so you're going to just lose so much time. You see this all the time with beginners. They constantly just like jab the throttle mid-corner for some reason. It loses you so much time. Don't do it, please. It also just raises the rear temperatures for no reason, so please don't do it. But yeah, that is the cadence throttling point. It's really, really important. It's something that is so overlooked, and I feel like maybe not that many people know about it. Obviously a lot of people know about like trail braking and stuff like that, but this cadence throttling, maybe a bit more bespoke. It's quite specific to the GTPs as well. Other cars don't have this to this severity. It's just that the GTPs are very rear grip limited with how they've done this tyre model. Calvin van der Linde, he had an interview with Jimmy Broadbent. Well, not an interview, but they were driving together, and Jimmy Broadbent asked him, how realistic are the GTPs in iRacing, and he said it's like driving a wet tyre, and maybe this is what he's referring to of how rear grip limited we are. It constantly feels like the rears are just sliding around, and you're sort of it's just like driving a boat, really. But yeah, I mean, this is not going to be a long one, because I can't really tell you how to do this. It's just more you need to feel it out. And yeah, if you constantly struggle on exits, this definitely could be one of your issues if you're really bad on exits. Because yeah, I mean, it's just no one really looks at the throttle that much in telemetry. Everyone looks at the brake, and yeah, this can be very, very overlooked. So yeah, maybe it's helped some of you guys, but yeah, thank you.